Would you mind doing an interview? Would you mind doing... I bet you've seen a lot of interviews in Japan. Maybe things like, what do Japanese people think about X? Or what do Japanese people think about this anime? Or this current news topic? Or anything of the sort. From watching all these things, you might think, hey, maybe it's really easy to do an interview in Japan. People seem to really like to talk to people. They seem like they want to give out their opinion. They seem like they want to maybe say what's going on in their news, say what's on their mind. But in reality, that's not the case at all. And I've learned over the course of 7 hours, probably 3-4 different shoots in Osaka and Tokyo and a bunch of different locations, that Japan is probably one of the hardest places in the world to film interviews. Over the course of 7 hours of calling on people, going up to them in person, going up with a sign in person, and even at some points directly trying to offer people money to enter an interview, everything that we tried was a complete waste of time. Initially, it was offering a Starbucks cookie, I think, and then after that, we decided to offer a cup of coffee or any drink they wanted. Then we bumped it up to the equivalent of $5 in Japanese currency and then $10 in Japanese currency for a 15-minute interview, and none of that mattered. You see, the video we're filming right now was supposed to be an interview. I bought this hat, which I'm not going to show you because I'm still in some part of my body thinking that, hey, maybe we might be able to make this video. Maybe we might be able to film this interview. But I also know that after, like I said, 7 hours of waiting and calling on people, showing the signs, going in groups, different locations, sitting in different areas, going on the weekend, on Saturdays, Fridays, for 2 hours, 3 hours, and 1.5 hours at a time, that realistically speaking, we're probably not going to get an interview. For this video that is probably not going to exist, we bought this whiteboard that you can see here, big whiteboard, this small whiteboard, this mic right here, as well as a hat, like I said, that I'm not going to show you because somewhere in my heart I think we may want to do the video. We bought markers as well as I made this whole preparation, which this cool little thing here with the whole presentation that has to do with the interview. Not that I want to spoil anything. And so this is the video that I'm making as to not completely have wasted my time for the last 2 weeks trying to make a video. What I did learn from all this, though, is a few things. The first is that interviews only take place in a few areas. This might seem like obvious, where you need a lot of people to come through if you want to do an interview. But I don't mean just having a lot of people. Most places you go to, especially in Tokyo, have a lot of people. But the thing is, if you're not in a specific area, whether it be Shibuya or maybe the most populated place in Osaka or some area like that, they don't expect either they can participate, even if they're being asked, or they don't know whether it's safe, they don't know what's going on, there's no other people doing it, they don't see other groups of YouTubers doing it, they don't see other groups of television companies doing it, therefore, they themselves don't want to take the risk and potentially get on the video. Also, obviously with YouTube videos in general, people don't like showing their faces, which a lot of people might be aware of. This is to say that if you're not shooting a video in a very specific way, in a very specific place, whether it be like Shibuya past 4 p.m., 3 p.m. when there's still light outside, and you're doing a street interview, you don't have somebody sitting down, it's only some simple questions about, hey, do you like this anime? Do you like this shirt? Or something like that, and you show them a little board where there's very low commitment in a high traffic area where you have a bunch of other YouTubers in the same space, all doing the same thing. It is almost impossible to get anybody to want to sit down. Other things that you might not notice with a lot of these videos is sometimes people have their face blurred or their
sound or whatever distorted in some sense, and that's because a lot of people don't want to be filmed even after the fact that they've been filmed.
And so the video I wanted to make is one where I wanted people's face to be in display because they'd be there for like 15 minutes, 15, 10, whatever minutes. And so if their face was blurred the whole time or their voice was distorted, I thought that would be a pain. So I also went through the pain of making a Japanese consent form, but that's just one more barrier in place that a Japanese person is not going to want to do when participating in an interview. One other thing I learned through this whole experience is that Japan and American culture, when it comes to interviewing, are very different. I think my first video, or one of my first videos, the US versus Japan convenience store comparison or something like that, I wasn't even shooting an interview in the US. I was in rural America somewhere, and the second I pulled out a tripod, I had two people in a truck and a car pull by and ask me a bunch of questions. What am I doing? Hey, can I be in the video? Are you shooting the video now? Whatever. Somebody sits down and they just jump for a conversation. Ask me anything. Like, these videos are very common, but there's a reason you don't see them in Japan. Like I said, from my experience, if you don't have a very specific formula with everybody around expecting a certain thing, in the right time of day, on the weekend with extremely high amounts of people coming through, you're not going to have anybody who's going to want to participate. Especially, and that's even assuming if they do sit down, they actually will let you show their face or their voice or anything in there. Whereas in America, the second you pull out a tripod or any sort of phone anywhere, people will rush in, or like I said, people will stop buying my car in rural America just to see what's going on. This is to say that if you're like someone like us running a fairly small channel, doing a topic that is fairly obscure, at least in Japan, even if it's in the correct location and there's a high amount of people, just because we're changing the format a little bit, making people sit down, just because we're doing a different topic, there might be other factors. It's been impossible to find anybody to do this interview or help even out with this video at all.
Freelancers and the citizen reporters that we train and pay per video, who often had to stand out on the streets for like 6-7 hours just to interview a handful of regular citizens, most of whom, by the way, don't want to be interviewed in front of the camera.
So the main takeaway I'm making with this video, other than the fact that I wanted to make a video out of this whole experience that I did, is that any interview that you see online, for will Japanese person react to this, Japanese person thinks this about this, what do Japanese people think about this, is an incredibly small subset of people. It is not, I wouldn't wager 1 in 100, not 1 in 1,000, not 1 in 10,000. Maybe 1 in 50,000 or something like that amount of people who actually wants to do an interview. And those people aren't even going to the interview location. So the people who are actually going to a place like in Shibuya where they know they see YouTubers and they want to be interviewed, that's an even smaller subset. So this is all to say, I'm not saying that there's no information being gathered from these interviews or anything like that, but just keep an open mind and be aware that what you're seeing is not necessarily representative of the whole of all of Japan. My opinion on this whole interviewing thing might be wrong. There might be other things that I could have done or anything like that, but this is my 2 cents on interviews in Japan and what people probably don't talk about when you see interviews in Japan and how often or how representative a given Japanese person is to the average Japanese person in terms of their opinion. And with that out of the way, I think I'm going to be leaving here. I spent way too much time trying to make this video that's not happening happen. If you want to listen to a real Japanese person, not me, about many various topics about Japan, culture, language related maybe, and or otherwise, then you can check out our podcast called Lazyfluency down in the description below.